The Samurai Turned Pretty is back this week with the 6th episode of the final season, and oh Belly, what did you nearly do? If this didn't show us the direction that the remaining episodes are going to go in, then I truly don't know what will. Every episode we're seeing Billy and Conrad growing that little bit closer, so now I'm starting to think that they could well be endgame. With love also seeming to blossom between Stephen and Denise, Belly's wedding not resembling anything that she originally wanted it to be, and Jeremiah jeopardizing the love that he has with Belly to impress his father, but it ultimately going nowhere. This was an episode that quite literally had it all. So with that, let's dive into the episode and break down all that there was to take away from it. Here is the Samurai Turned Pretty Season 3 Episode 6 Ending Explained. Just to let you know, this video will contain spoilers. Belly and Jeremiah. Throughout the past couple of episodes, we've seen Belly getting frustrated at the fact that the dream wedding that she always wanted wasn't going to be going ahead as planned. And within this episode, the frustrations continued. With Kaylee being brought in as the planner by Adam, the very person who he cheated on Conrad and Jeremiah's mother with, which just felt like it was almost cursing the marriage before it had happened. All of the decisions were now out of Belly's hands. The food she wanted was laughed at, and there were over 100 RSVPs when most of those made up strangers and people that Belly didn't care for. It had become a business event, and she was basically having second thoughts on it going through as planned because it wasn't what she wanted. Plus, with her mother still not attending, it was something that she was just seeing more as a nightmare than a dream wedding. And what I'd say as well is Jeremiah wasn't that understanding of it because he was simply just trying to impress his father and get in his good books because it was a type of relationship that he'd never really had with him before, and he just wanted him to be proud of him, but it was coming at the cost to his future marriage. As well as that, we also saw both Jeremiah and Belly looking to find their own apartment during this episode, following Adam wanting Belly out of his house as she was causing some disruption after 2 weeks. During this house hunt, we also saw friction between the both of them again, showing that them both being together isn't as smooth sailing as they thought it would be. They couldn't get the first place because of Jeremiah's credit score. Then the following places that they went to, they couldn't get it sorted because none of the properties that were in their budget were that nice. And as well, Jeremiah was just on his phone checking the time and making sure that he could make it to the meeting with his father. So again, it just showed that it wasn't quite clicking between them. The biggest thing of them all though came during Belly's bridal shower when she thought that the story about finding Rosie the dog was about Jeremiah finding them, when in actual fact it was Conrad, showing that Conrad was the person that was still in her mind. The movie that she even watched with her mother, called Bye Bye Birds, had a song in it called We Love You Conrad, and it concluded with I Guess I'll Always Care, which felt like some really important lyrics, which was representative of the fact that Belly will always care for Conrad. And this was shown to us right at the end of the episode when Conrad got injured while surfing. Belly then went up to him, and then during that moment she was on the cusp of kissing him and was almost lost in his eyes, staring at him whilst holding his hand, showing that there was a deeper connection there. She didn't go through with it, but she was fully aware of the fact that she almost did something that she would have regretted if she actually did. Within her mind, she said, "What just happened? What did I almost do?" And as she said that, the focus was on the ring on her finger. So I think we're going to see Belly having some doubts moving forward. With Jeremiah, he's not really done that much with the wedding, and he's mainly been focusing on getting approval from his father, so it's clear to see why Belly has been growing a bit distant. All of this approval that he's trying to get is falling on deaf ears, so it's going to end up costing him more than he realizes right now. Conrad. Conrad's hero complex was in full effect during this episode. He was making Belly food because he knew that she wasn't the best at cooking, and after seeing that she hadn't eaten because there was something that was clearly on her mind, and he knew that it was most likely the fact that Laurel wasn't going to the wedding, he picked up the phone to Laurel and arranged to meet with her. During this meeting, Conrad explained to Laurel that Belly had been struggling and that she needed her there at the wedding with her, and he also said how if she didn't go, she'd probably end up regretting it for the rest of her life. Not being there for her own daughter's wedding would be a massive milestone to miss. This was what made Laurel realize that Belly was hurting more than she thought, and it was Conrad reaching out that got her to go to the bridal shower. If it wasn't for him, then she never would have gone. The sad reality in all of this, though, is that Conrad was doing this to make Belly happy, whilst saying to Laurel that he'd only be happy himself once the wedding was done and once he was back in Stanford. Billy doesn't know that it was Conrad that orchestrated the meetup, the conversation, and the reason as to why Laurel showed up at the bridal shower. So when she does find this out, I imagine she's going to be in shock that he went to that effort, because Jeremiah's done nothing like that. Stephen and Denise. These are two characters that are growing closer and closer, and we're starting to see them actually show each other that they like one another more than just work colleagues. Denise was asking Stephen if he wanted to meet up over the weekend, which he couldn't do. But prior to that, we saw that they were flirting with each other a lot, and there was a playfulness there that wasn't there before. As the episode went on, Denise went to Stephen's and told him that he wanted to head up a business with him, which was involving his game. Something that they had to do secretly. And Denise said the line, "I wouldn't potentially blow up my entire future for just anyone." So it shows that she definitely thinks highly of Stephen, and she cares about him a lot. The person that's not seeming to get the happy ending from this relationship, though, is Taylor. Taylor is still in love with Stephen and is just quietly sitting there on the sidelines knowing full well that Stephen is falling in love with somebody else. She got her hopes up with the news that he'd be attending the bridal shower, thinking that he was going there for her. But in reality, it was the opposite. He was there to support his sister. So when she turned around and said how she was just going to be a good friend to him because that's what he wanted, she acted up to it. However, that look on her face spoke 1,000 words, showing that she was hurting a lot inside. I do wonder though who Stephen will end up with. I like the purity of Stephen and Denise because there's no drama, but I guess we'll just have to see if he gets drawn back to the past with Taylor. My review of the episode. I thought this was just an okay episode of the show. It wasn't the best episode of the season and it wasn't the most drama-filled episode either, but it did contain the biggest revelation out of them all, and the fact that Billy nearly kissed Conrad. So it was probably the most important episode because it marked the direction of change. Last week's episode, with it being entirely from Conrad's perspective, it was always going to be a difficult one to top because it was so good. So even though this one wasn't stronger, it followed on from the story nicely and made that easy transition for the story. When it came to the performances, I thought they were all just okay. There were no real standout moments or performances that topped the others, not like last week with Conrad stealing the episode. I would say though that the moment between Belly and her mother at the bridal shower was one that I didn't expect to make me feel the way that it did. It was quite emotional, so I think the way that it was paired with the music, along with Laurel emerging from behind a crowd of people, it just caught me off guard, and it was nice to see the both of them back together. If I have a critique, I would say that Jeremiah does just seem to be acting a bit strange when it comes to the wedding. I don't know if he's just got comfortable with the fact that he's marrying Belly, but the whole putting his father's company ahead of his whole wedding is just making me think that he doesn't truly want to get married, and that it was more so about him being able to apologize to Belly in the best way possible for cheating on her, so it's a little bit confusing. We've now passed the halfway point of the season, and I feel like the next episode is really going to dive deep inside Belly's mind, and we'll see where her heart is truly at. She shouldn't be marrying Jeremiah if she was on the cusp of kissing Conrad. So if she cancels the wedding after finally getting everybody on side, it's going to cause a ton of drama. Let's just wait and see. So, there you have it. The Summer I Turned Pretty Season 3 Episode 6 Ending Explained.